So this is Dr. Joy Harewood from SUNY College of Optometry, the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And I'd like to welcome you to our July edition of our diversity series. For this one, we are looking at a patient-centered approach to treating low vision. And we've invited some experts with us today from inside the school and outside the school, so it should be a very interesting night. As I said, the meeting will be recorded. We will take questions, but I would like, if possible, for you to save your questions to the very end or put them in the chat, and I will get to them as soon as we are all wrapped up. I'm going to stop sharing my slide. And I'm going to introduce all of our panelists, which should be spotlighted for you today. And they will be introduced in the order with which they're going to speak tonight. Each of them will speak for about, let's say, 10 minutes or so to give a short blurb about their particular area of expertise, and then we'll have time for questions. So we have Mr. Edwin Mercado, who is a patient advocate and has been at SUNY for a while and worked with us on many of our research studies. And so we're very happy to have him with us today. I have Dr. Rebecca Marinoff. Dr. Marinoff is an associate clinical professor and low vision rehabilitation residency supervisor at SUNY College of Optometry. She completed a residency in low vision rehab at Southern College of Optometry and is a graduate of SUNY College of Optometry. She's currently the immediate past chair of the ASCO Low Vision Educators Special Interest Group, or SIG. She's a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry and a diplomate of the American Board of Optometry. She serves as the co-chair of the Low Vision Committee and the New York State Optometric Association, NYSOA, the Low Vision Committee on the New York State Optometric Association, excuse me. She has lectured both nationally and internationally on topics related to low vision rehabilitation. So welcome to Dr. Marinoff. We also have Carol Mook. She is a senior mobility instructor at the Lighthouse Guild. She received her BA from Hunter College and is an MS in graduate studies in vision impairment from Salus University, formerly PCO, for those of you who know it as that. She's been working as an orientation and mobility instructor since 1996. She has worked at Jewish Guild for the Blind, which merged with the Lighthouse to become the Lighthouse Guild. So welcome. Welcome to Chancey Fleet. She is an assistive technology coordinator at the Andrew Haskell Braille and Talking Book Library, which is a subsidiary of the New York Public Library. She identifies as blind and joined the staff in 2014 after starting as a founding volunteer for the branch's tech coaching service in 2010. Chancey was a 2017 Library Journal mover and shaker. I love that. Finally, rounding out our panel, we have Jill Rothstein. Jill Rothstein has worked at the New York Public Library for the last 16 years and has been chief librarian of the Andrew Haskell Braille and Talking Book Library in NYC for 5 years. She's a member of the Accessibility Working Group and a core team member and mentor within the Innovation Project. She presented at the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled Conference, Metro Libraries Conference, American Library Association, and Harvard's World Heritage Strategy Forum. Before that, she sang and did silly dances for toddlers as a children's librarian, and then did not sing as much as a neighborhood branch manager. So welcome to everybody. Thank you for being with us today. We are actually going to start with Mr. Mercado, who is a patient advocate, who we would like to start by really just telling us about his experience, how he's interfaced with low vision professionals, and how he wants to be interfaced with. So with that, I'm going to mute and have you take it away, Mr. Mercado.
Hi. Well, my name is Edwin Mercado, and I was born and raised in Dominican Republic. Became a student and architecture, and then became a graphic designer. Then my experience with this low vision is like a new phase, because before and after. Before that, I didn't realize how the impact the human have without this condition. And then having this condition, it's like having a new phase of a new experience. And that's why I'm here today, to share everything about it. Because in my case, I can tell the stories with vision, and now with the low vision, it's totally different. And it's a new experience.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your experience at SUNY College of Optometry and how you've interfaced with our low vision community.
Well, contacting the SUNY University, it was at the beginning, I was really amazed, because all the technology, the people, and the understanding about caring with the patients. Before, my experience was going through doctors, and when I get to SUNY, it was like going into heaven, because I got all the answers. They really take care about the people, and it was really, really amazing. People inside there, it was really good.
So tell us about your experience. How did your vision decline, and how did we help you to get to the level of function that you have today?
Well, I started losing my vision eventually, like 8 years ago, and it was a sudden change. From the beginning, I was consider myself seeing 20/20, like perfect vision, because my job required to be highly accurate and detailed. So I never complained about vision, never needed glasses, nothing. And from one day, or from day 0 to day 7, it was something really, really amazing and powerful, because my vision decreased in a point that I said to myself that it was concerning. And my journey started seeking what was wrong with my vision, and then how to solve this problem. At the beginning, I thought it was like something that maybe with glasses it will be fixed. But eventually, going into doctor to doctor, I realized it will be something that it was not that easy. But looking around and seeking information on the web and Google, I wrote to the SUNY and explained my case, and they, from the beginning, they were like open arms with me, and if they were glad for me to come to them to see what they can do for me. And on that time, I remember that my vision was declining fast. I was able to go in step by step, seeing blurry, but at least I can see the outside. And then from blurry to not able to perceive my environment, until these days that I really cannot even, I have to know my environment to picture inside me what I'm seeing. I mean, I cannot see, but if I know there's a table on the right, for example, I can picture it in my mind. That how hard it was, my vision declining from perfect vision to basically cannot see my environment.
Now, how did the doctors help you? What type of devices or training did they give you? Doctors and therapists, how did they help you to use the vision that you had in order to get around during the day?
Yeah, we tried many devices that I didn't know even they really exist. And in my case, because of my type of condition, there's no device that I can use. The devices can help me to see my reality, but not be able to see, like to it's like I cannot see as I wish or I wanted to look around, but at least I can understand what are my environment. And I remember one of those cases that I will not be able to read, and they showed me a special screen that where they can change the contrast, the lighting, the increase the brightness, some type of specifications. And that was the first time for the long time I could read it. And it was a really amazing experience when I can read the letters. They put me some tests and that I can really read. They put me some letters, big ones, tiny ones, but then they changed the setting to until I get accommodated. And then when the first time I saw the line that I read it like straight, it was a really good experience. So they really have all the experience, those devices and experience that it was a really amazing experience at that time.
So what would you want other doctors, not necessarily the doctors who helped you, but some of our doctors in training or those of us who may not, have that focus on low vision, what would you want us to know to best treat you or help you or do what the doctors and therapists did for you to make it better for you?
If there's no way I can say there was something that doctors didn't want for me. They wanted to help on every kind of situations. But if I have to pinpoint something that I wanted for them to do, is and it's talking in my case, sometimes I explain what I feel, if that was my experience, and they try to translate it to what they know. And most of the time, in my case, I have to re-explain it. And at the end, it was like, it's what you're saying is close to what I know. So maybe a good point is to not focus on what they understand, is the studies that they have that they know. It's just to sometimes to not believe on the patient, but try to understand the patient. That's the only thing that I can pinpoint, that everything was perfectly good, but at some time I have to focus on that. What I'm saying is what I feel, and not what you are trying to make it close to your understanding. That's the only thing that I can say now.
No, that makes perfect sense. And that goes right along with what we're trying to do, which is make sure that we focus on the patient's complaints and we listen. So I have one question from the audience, actually. The question is to see, Mr. Mercado, were there any low vision support groups that were helpful to you, if you feel comfortable sharing that?
Oh, yes. I don't remember the name of the group of the session, but with that session with Marion, that was the first time that I met with with people in my conditions. And sometimes I think I'm by myself in this type of situations. But then I realized there are other people with my same conditions, feeling the same of what I'm feeling, going through the same steps that I'm going through. And it was really relief to know that there's some others, and we can share, we can talk about what I did to get a solution for something that I was going through, and they were sharing for situation that they were going through, and it was really, really special. In my case, for example, for me, that time I was like a new becomer, because I was understanding what I was going through is with my low vision. It's like you don't know what is a low vision. So there's no guide to say, when you begin a low vision, this is going to happen to you and this is your new life. So I was learning until my new condition and realizing that there's nothing wrong and there's a lot of new things to learn.
That's excellent. And who Mr. Ricardo was referencing is Marion Wise, who's one of the social workers at SUNY, who's incredible in general, but very, very helpful to me as well as to lots of patients in the low vision department. So I thank you very much. So Mr. Mercado, I want you to stay on, but I am going to move things to our next panelist. Thank you very much for sharing with us today. I really appreciate it, and please stick around.
Yes.
So next we have Dr. Marinoff, who's going to tell us a little bit about the importance of referral patterns and some tips for those of us who may not know as much about how to treat those with low vision. So did you want to share your screen?
Yes, I'll share my screen. Thank you again to Mr. Mercado for sharing your experience with everyone. How will I follow this talk? I'm not sure. So let me get ready. So with my short time that I have, I'll be talking a little bit on a couple of topics that are relevant. So I've titled my talk, Helping Our Low Vision Patients to Thrive. And I'll be touching on referral, what we do in the low vision exam to help our patients, and what doctors in a primary care or ocular disease setting could choose to do if desired in order to do a little bit more in their exams. So in terms of deciding whether or not to refer your patient to low vision, directing this at my eye care provider colleagues who may be on the Zoom or listening, I would encourage to make that decision. You can use Acuity to guide you, but considering also field and the patient's difficulties. So remember that your patient who is only best correctable to 20/50 at near is going to have trouble with reading small print because they're right at that threshold. And if your patient has reduced vision that's only correctable to 20/60 or 20/70, they're going to be having some trouble seeing street signs and some distant objects as well because they're right at that threshold again. And so if we have a patient who has advanced eye conditions that affect their side vision, so those patients are going to have trouble with things like crossing the street or navigating stairs, especially in environments that aren't as well lit, like going in and out of the subway station. And our patients who have a whole range of eye conditions that affect their eye tissue are going to experience glare either inside or outside. So I would encourage you to, once you've either completed your refraction or at the end of the exam, to question your patient to find out, you see that their vision isn't reaching a certain level, and to say, are you having trouble with things like reading, driving, other day-to-day tasks? Our patients may not want to volunteer that information. There may be some fear, there may be some stigma that they feel. And so if we can recognize the acuity and field difficulties and ask them a few extra questions, we can then have the information we need to know what the next step can be. I would also encourage that sooner referrals are better and easier, that we can help patients with all levels of vision. But if a patient has, say, 2100 or better acuity, if that referral is possible to be made, then we're able to help the patient with a lower powered and simpler device, as opposed to if the patient has more significant acuity loss along with significant field, significant contrast loss, that's starting off with a more complex device. And another reminder that when you refer to your friendly low vision doctor, someone like me is also going to refer the patient for services like we're going to hear about from our other panelists. So mobility training, assistive technology training, key things that are going to help our patients to succeed, whether they're in school, work, or with different kinds of hobbies. There's training to help people do things in adaptive ways like cooking. There are a multitude of other services. There are special services possibly for transportation. And so when you refer for the exam, you're also referring for those beyond the exam elements as well. And so how are we helping your patients when we do our low vision exam? So our goal at the end is to produce an individualized low vision rehabilitation plan. So putting together the patient's difficulties that we'll find out through our comprehensive history, and then we're evaluating the patient through refraction, through some additional testing, getting their best corrected acuity, showing a range of devices that may help the patient with their needs. And then we can put together our range of recommendations to help the patient with the things that they want or need to do and that they can do with the vision that they currently have. And then also making those additional referrals to round out the services. So referring for mobility, technology training, other services, registering the patient as legally blind if they are. And then we're so fortunate to work with our social work team to provide a team approach to care, to connect our patients to services in the community and to mental health resources. And so there may be those in the audience who work in a primary care setting, who work in a ocular disease setting. And so is there more that you could do if you choose to? So I've broken down the low vision care into what I'll call 2 tiers. So sort of a more basic tier and a more advanced tier that I'm calling comprehensive. So for our patients with mild to moderate acuity loss who don't have significant field loss and who only have mild to moderate effective contrast, you don't need to be a low vision specialist to prescribe higher powered reading glasses or to go over applications on a smartphone, tablet, e-reader, to go over some different apps and accessibility options. And if so inclined, it could also show some low-powered magnifiers for reading. And then when you have that patient who has more severe to profound acuity loss, they're at the level of legal blindness or worse, they do have significant field loss, their contrast loss is much more pronounced. Those are patients who are going to need more complex optical devices and going into additional realms like telescopes or managing field loss. And those I would say would definitely go to the low vision specialist. And so I have had colleagues in the area who have done that basic tier themselves and then sent to me for something more complex, depending on the patient that they encounter. So that's all I had for today, and hopefully answers some questions, and I'm happy to answer more.
Thanks, Dr. Maranoff. I actually have a question for myself. Are there any particular apps that you think are useful for your regular primary care optometrist to know?
So I think some simple things are becoming a little bit more familiar with, say, the accessibility features of the smartphone and tablets to sort of go over how to increase font size, how to invert the colors, how to utilize a speech function, simple things that the patient may not be familiar with. So that can be something that's quick and easy. In terms of apps, there's an app for everything. There's an app made specifically for low vision patients, a GPS app called Lazarillo. There are a range of apps for identifying objects. The camera on the phone can be used to pinch and zoom as well on Android and Apple products. So there are just some basic, simple things that patients may not be aware of. There's also an app that anyone could use. So there's an app called Be My Eyes. So this is a way to help low vision patients with some basic tasks. So people can sign up as sighted volunteers, and low vision patients are able to access it. You're in the supermarket having trouble finding the product that they need, something like that. Looking in their cabinet for which can am I going to use to make my dinner. And so just a couple of things. There's an app called TapTapSee to help identify objects. Google Lens is also getting more advanced in terms of object identification. So just a couple of apps. There's hundreds more, but those are just a couple I can think of off the top of my head that may be useful for our audience.
Awesome. Do you mind writing some of those in the chat, just so that we can save them and we can make sure that people know them? So that's great. Thank you, Dr. Marinoff.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, so next, if I'm going to remove the spotlight here, we have Carol Mook, who's a senior mobility instructor. Do you want to share your screen?
Yes, I do. Whoops. 1 second.
No problem.
If I can open it here. There we go. Are you seeing it on the screen?
Yeah, we can see it on the screen.
Okay. Very good. So, again, my name is Carol Moak. I'm a mobility instructor with Lighthouse Guild. And just to go through basically what is orientation and mobility. What an instructor does is they go to people's homes and they assess what their functional vision is, what their mobility skills are, what their goals are, you know, how well they travel. We have a baseline that no matter what the situation is, we try to make sure that the person is able to exit their home safely and independently. You know, I have people say, oh, I'm always with somebody, but, you know, we emphasize that you want to feel that you can exit your home if you need to. So that, but we teach basic skills on how to travel safely within the home, how to walk on the sidewalk, how to cross streets, how to walk routes and take buses and subways, the whole range from, you know, very basic goals to complex routes and, you know, public transportation within the city. Some of the tools that we teach with, we have the long white cane, which very simple device, and it checks the ground in front of the person and they clear the pathway with the cane. The identification cane is a thinner, smaller version of the cane. It's just for identification. Maybe the person has enough functional vision to negotiate around obstacles, but they may need a little bit of help in terms of getting through crowds, or if they're waiting for a bus and they have the ID cane and the bus driver, they ask the bus driver, what bus is it? The bus driver just doesn't point to the sign. They understand that the person is asking because they can't see the sign. And the guide dog, which is another means of travel, after a person is traveling safely and independently, then if they want to go get a guide dog, a mobility instructor would refer them to the guide dog school and they would train them. And just to make the point that the person is the one, it's a team. The person and the dog work together so that the person has to be oriented and know when to cross the street. The person gives the command to cross and the dog will guide the person across. So it's not like the person comes out and says to the dog, okay, take me to the pharmacy. No, the person would direct the dog which way to turn, when to cross the street, and the dog would guide the person around the obstacles and follow the commands of the person. So all of these things, the long cane, the identification cane, the guide dog, all of the training that the mobility instructor does is very one-to-one and very personal to that person. It's every person has a different set of goals, a different way of learning. It's a very individualized training. So that, you know, a lot of initially is trying to see what the person wants to learn and how they learn, and then working with them to achieve their goals. And the long cane A lot of times people think that everybody using a long cane is totally blind, and that's a misconception because a lot of people that are traveling have functional vision, and the long cane would supplement that vision. So that by using the long cane, the person would use their vision for what's up ahead and the cane for what's on the ground. So this is just a few examples. Trailing on the wall, the woman has the cane and the hand on the wall. Some simple self-protective techniques is using your arm to protect your body walking. It's mostly used indoors as you're approaching a wall or a chair, just some basic techniques. Again, using the cane to detect surfaces on the ground and negotiate. The picture on the bottom with the chain link fence, that's a common situation. The cane keeps getting caught in the fence, so it's not such a good surface to trail. Again, the training is so individualized. We travel to people's homes in a neighborhood so that they're learning how to travel in the places where they're going to travel. And that's what makes it interesting, and it makes it very, individual for that person. If they're living in an area where have complex street crossings, but that's what they're going to be doing, this is what you work on. So that the training really does, I always say it's not hypothetical, so that the client, as they're learning it, they should be using what they learn. And one method I use is that as the person's progressing, I would meet them at certain points of the route. So I would say, okay, I'm going to meet you at the corner. And then later on in the training, I'm going to meet you 2 blocks away, so that they reinforce that they're actually using the skills that they're learning and learning as they do the skills. So it's all interconnected. The cane itself protects the person from the waist down, so that if a person is walking and there's an overhanging branch, the cane is not going to detect it. So it's only protecting the person from the waist down. And like the water fountain, the cane could go right underneath. So there are some, downside. Where the guide dog would guide the person around the obstacles for the whole person. Markings on the steps is very good for the low vision, and everybody can benefit from it. If you take a look at the stairs on the right, there's no marking, there's no contrast. In the bright sunlight, you can't even tell where that first step is. If a person has the cane and the cane is, 1 to 2 steps in front of them, the cane will detect that drop in time for the person to react. And with steps, it's always the first step and the last step that are the troublemakers. Usually after you find the first step and you get the rhythm, but knowing where that last step. So that's where the cane comes in. So again, somebody may have a good amount of functional vision, but still have problems going downstairs, especially like the ones on the right, where if the contrast is blurred, the cane can actually supplement the vision that they have. The guide technique is just the standard technique for when you're walking with somebody who's visually impaired. The person who's visually impaired would hold the arm of the guide so that they're 1 step behind. So as they walk, they're actually a little bit behind. So if the person stops, the person with them can stop at the same time. A guide always goes through the doorway first. You never want to push, pull, grab a person unexpectedly. Always speak first. These are just some of the techniques that we introduce to family members and home health aides that are working with the clients so that they can travel comfortably together. Basic things with the guide technique, you want to always ask the person, offer your arm, never grab somebody. If you need to walk away from somebody, you want to actually not leave them in open space, kind of bring them to a stationary obstacle or a wall, and then step away. Let the person know you're coming up to a curb with stepping up, with stepping down. basic techniques that we go through with clients and family members. And just to, reiterate with the mobility training, we focus a lot on the cane, but a lot of it is maximizing somebody's remaining vision and, getting the person to use all their senses, the cane, the hearing, the remaining vision, and putting it together. Sometimes they say it's like you have to be a detective and pull all the clues together and figure out where you have to go. So it's again, an individualized training. It never gets boring because every person is different, every place is different. So it's just an interesting field, and it's something I always tell my clients when I first meet them and somebody says, oh, medically, the doctor told me there's nothing that can be more that can be done for my vision. And I say, okay, but functionally, there's a lot you can do. If you're willing to learn and, to just take step by step, you can really make progress functionally. And it starts to get away from, the idea of, oh, there's nothing I can do, to, yes, there's a lot. The world kind of opens up after they first start taking those steps. So thank you.
Thank you. That was very useful. I actually have one question for you. I think that there's always the want to help when you see somebody with a cane who may be doing just fine on their own. Are there any specific cues or clues for those of us who see somebody walking with a cane where we may want to step in, or is it better to see whether they need that help?
Yeah, and that's always the judgment call, because you want to be helpful, but you don't want to intrude, and that's a excellent question. I would suggest if you see somebody walking and they're walking down the sidewalk and it doesn't look like they're having any difficulty, then I don't think they would need help. But if you see somebody and you're not sure, the first thing I would say is, hello, do you need some help? Ask first. Don't just assume they do. And you never want to grab somebody or take their arm, but just ask. And I think, most people will either say, no, I'm fine, or yes, thank you. So I think if you're not sure, I would just ask. And people will let you know if they need help or not.
Okay, thank you very much. We have one more question that I will get to at the very, very end. So next up, we have Chancey Fleet, who's an assistive technology coordinator, and I'm going to just spotlight her right here. Did you have any slides that you wanted to share as well?
Nope, no slides today.
Okay, perfect. So take it away.
So hi, everybody. My name is Chancey. I identify as blind, and I have, just so y'all know, I have Leber's congenital amaurosis. Some of you might be familiar with what that is. It's a genetic thing. For me in my life, it's been pretty stable. And actually, I have a little bit of vision. I used to say that I see the world in shades of gray, and then a certain book came out, and we don't say that anymore. But I see shapes and shadows and broad outlines of things. But I noticed when I went to college and started traveling more independently, I noticed that when I was in a complex transit situation, I would start to get fatigued. My shoulders would crunch up and I would get headaches. And I realized that little bit of vision that I have, enough to maybe read the 5 on a $5 bill if it's right by my eyeball, the vision that I had, I was overextending it and I was stressing myself out. And I was putting myself in a situation where I was relying on my weakest resource. And so I went and got blindness training, actually put on sleep shades 8 hours a day, and learned that using that vision is a choice and that alternative non-visual techniques are really important for me, even though you might describe me as someone with very low vision or someone who's legally blind. And so when I say that I identify as blind and I capitalize it and stuff like that, that's because I do things in a non-visual way. And I really privilege that. And I also really privilege the wisdom and the intelligence of my community who teaches me how to do things in a different way. Some of my hobbies include doing origami, learning to solder, doing gardening, doing tandem biking. And I really like to push myself to explore things that traditionally blind people are not told that we can do, and low vision people aren't told that we can do. So that brings me to my role at the library. I was actually a colleague of Carol's before I was working at the Lighthouse Guild. And I noticed when I was at Lighthouse Guild, although we did a lot of things well, there were a lot of people that we couldn't serve because our mandate was to serve vocational consumers. So that left out undocumented people, homemakers, retirees, family members who want to be allies and learn, folks who are high, type A, happily employed, but maybe they want to do something like learn to use social networking or set up their Match.com profile. Those were not things that we could do in my unit where we were focused on vocational goals. And I also noticed around that same time that when I did road trips to state and national advocacy with my blind friends, we would spend our time on the train or the megabus kind of swapping ideas and teaching each other things. And often we were solving each other's technology problems. Hey, I heard about this new app. Hey, my phone is doing this really weird thing. And we developed a community resilience because we could rely on each other to learn things. And I thought, how great would it be if we could identify a place where we could put peers with disabilities, particularly blind people, together with folks that are not as confident with their technology and let people learn in a more informal setting that doesn't compete with the agencies, but that just gives you that road trip, solving a problem feeling. And so I started the tech coaching program at our library. And Jill's going to talk to you more about our library in its more foundational sense, our talking books and braille books that we offer. But what I want to let you know is that I run a tech coaching service that does about 150 hours a month of one-on-one coaching. Any goal is valid, any age, any level of vision loss can come. I even have one guy right now who is not even legally blind. He just has intense migraines and looking at stuff hurts. We're able to serve him. We're able to serve people that use magnification. We're able to serve people who are seniors aging into low or no vision, family members that want to be allies and learn. We do things as basic as helping people figure out how to start to learn to type. And we do things as ambitious as working with electronics and 3D printing and using techniques to make tactile, touchable graphics and maps and charts. We're all over the map there. And so I really hope I put my email address here in the chat. You can't miss it. Reach out to me. I'm happy to add y'all to my event lists. One of the greatest gifts that you can give a patient when you can't give them any more medical interventions, or even when you can, is giving them the gift of their community. Help them hook up with the people who are going to give them wisdom and strength and problem solving. And often that means the blind community. We teach, in addition to our one-on-one coaching, we teach all kinds of group workshops, including workshops on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And we use those programs for the same reasons that everybody does, but we also use them for community support. There's a Facebook group for assistive technology for the blind. There's a New York Tri-State blind and vision impaired Facebook group. There are ones that are specifically dedicated to people who want to be crafters. There's one called Disability Wisdom where you can just come with your heavy stuff. You know, how do I talk to my family about setting boundaries around my independence? You know, what do I do about raising young kids when I'm losing vision? So we can teach the technology that is going to be the gateway for people to go out and find that community support and find that strength. All of the major platforms, iOS, Android, Chrome OS, Mac, PC, have magnification built in. We can increase the contrast. We can do different color schemes. We can magnify things. We can put big giant pointers around the mouse. For people with a field restriction, we can get everything into a small stationary block somewhere on the screen, wherever works for their vision. So we totally support people who use magnification. We support people who, like me, want to get stuff done using screen readers, reading the contents of an app or a computer screen selectively and efficiently. We support digital braille displays. And we support people who might not want to do complex tech stuff, but maybe they want to learn to use a conversational interface, a voice assistant, like the A lady from Amazon, I don't want to trigger her, or the G lady from Google. We can help with all of those things. And In particular, we're very welcoming of people who are in transition, and we're very welcoming of seniors. In addition to our tech offerings, we also offer a Braille study group. Often our library patrons have heard that because we have technology now, because we have text-to-speech, Braille is difficult, Braille is hard to learn, maybe it's unnecessary, but we let people decide for themselves. We teach them a little bit of Braille, let them learn the alphabet and the numbers, and see if do they want to play cards? Do they want to play Scrabble? Do they want to read signs on elevators and restrooms? And some people stop there and they're happy to have a little bit of Braille in their life, and that's fine. And some people go on and they learn to read books and write journals. Because we're a library, every goal is valid. Every level of desired achievement is valid. Backsliding and not showing up to class for 3 months and then saying, hey, it's me again, that's welcome. We are a safe, welcoming, inclusive space, and we offer one-on-one coaching and group workshops in English and in Spanish. And more than what I can give, and any of our staff members can give, the other thing that patrons get from coming to the library and interacting with us and with fellow patrons is they get to meet other blind people who are striving and trying something new and sometimes difficult. It makes me so happy when I see library patrons getting together, leaving after an iPhone class, and I find out that they're going to go across the street for coffee, or when someone who's been blind for about a month shows up and suddenly all the library patrons are showing them all the different kinds of canes that people have brought into the building. You can't manufacture those moments. You can't hire for those moments. And I can tell you, having been in the blind community in a really connected way for a good half of my life, I would not have achieved as much, and I wouldn't feel as good about myself and as good about my possibilities. And I wouldn't feel as willing to fail and try again if I didn't have that community of support. So, my immediate message is please email me, get on our event list, or go to nypl.com/talkingbooks and get your patients hooked up with our technology programs. They're really cool. But in a broader sense, please, whether you're still going through a medical process or whether you're at the end of that road, it's always the right time to connect people to their community of support, because we're not just a disability group. We are a minority group that is wise and strong and resilient and diverse, and discovering the community can turn an experience of loss and interruption into an experience of community and discovery. Thank you.
That was just awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I have one question for you as well.
Okay.
Were there any specific groups, let's just say in the New York area, that you found particularly useful during your transition, or you think are particularly useful for doctors to refer their patients to or therapists to connect people to?
So my transition happened at birth. So I haven't been through the same thing that a lot of your patients have. And this is a little politically charged, so I'm going to take off my NYPL hat and say there are two organizations, civil rights organizations of blind people speaking for themselves. Both of them have democratic processes, both have chapter meetings in most municipalities, very different takes on things. Sometimes we work together, sometimes we super don't. So I would say the American Council of the Blind, acb.org, and the National Federation of the Blind, nfb.org. Not only are they places where you can rally together and get support, but they're also places that will hand you responsibility and give you ways to volunteer and contribute, which is a really good way to build up your confidence. And they'll also both work on policy that makes our lives better as blind people. I'm not going to tell you which one I belong to because I don't want to bias anybody. And I always recommend, I'll usually pull in a volunteer or staff member that belongs to the other one, and we kind of do the pitch together, because it can feel a little political at times, but regardless which one someone joins, it's just awesome to think about blindness as a civil rights issue and not just an individual missing part.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming in. Hopefully we can tap you to speak again. That was really awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So we have our last speaker of today, Jill Rothstein, who is, I'm going to spotlight right now, and she is a librarian at the exact same place where Chansey just spoke about. So you can take it away.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Jill. I'm the chief librarian at the Andrew High School Braille and Talking Book Library. And as you heard a little bit, I used to be a children's librarian, and I used to get paid to play with paint and glitter and 3-year-olds. And I thought that that was really fun and fulfilling. But then my second day on the job at the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, I was doing an outreach event, and a woman started crying at me because her father had been losing his vision for 2 years, and no one had ever told her before that there was a way he could still read, and it was going to change her life. And I thought, this is amazing. I have never worked in a more rewarding library. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that every day our patrons tell us that we are saving their lives, saving their sanity. We have quotes all over the library of people telling us that reading is their only pain management system. It's how they stay connected and engaged. Someone says, I can't leave my apartment anymore, but with your books, I get to travel all over the world. You get the idea. I'm kind of a library lover. It can get really cheesy about books, but I'm just here to tell you about the Talking Book program and hope that you might all share this with your communities if it comes up. We are part of the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress runs a national system serving anyone who has a mailing address in this country with free, accessible reading material. And that can come in whatever form is the most wanted and most appropriate for each person. So if someone is not a fan of technology, does not have the luck to have access to technology, we will send them a free talking book player. So this is kind of the most analog thing. It looks like this. It is designed to be as accessible as possible. It has bright colors if someone does have low vision. Every button has a different shape with ridges and divots. If you press a button, it will speak out loud how to use it. And we provide these for free. And if someone spills a cup of coffee on it and ruins it, we'll just give them a new one for free as well. Our only goal is to help people read. We don't want their money. So we will send this machine to their door, and we will send them talking books, which look like overgrown flash drives and have real human actors narrating the books. And we have everything. We do have that 50 Shades of Grey book. We have Playboy in Braille. We have nursery rhymes. We have cookbooks. We have bestsellers. We have classics. We have plays and poetry. Basically any genre for any age and in multiple languages as well. We'll mail it to them for free. They can just turn over the mailing card. It has our address pre-printed, mail it back. They can get up to 30 books at a time. As soon as they return one, we'll send them another one. If they want, we'll choose books for them so they never run out of books. And some of our members tell us, don't ever let me run out of books. I need books. They're my security blanket. I listen to them when I'm washing dishes, when I'm going to sleep, when I'm talking to my friends. I have the books on in the background. Other people, they might only want books now and then when they order them, and we can do that too. People can order on our website. They can call us. We have our phone staffed by librarians every day. We have email address. We have a catalog that comes out every 2 months with the newest recorded talking books. We have 150,000 titles to choose from in general, so we don't have one big catalog. But every 2 months, they can either get the catalog in large print or Braille or audio, and it comes with an order form, or like I said, they can call and email or be on automatic service. Now, for people who do have a computer and internet or have a friend or family member or neighbor who does, they can use the BARD website to instantly download any title onto any flash drive. And that flash drive will play in our free talking book machine, and they can keep it forever. We have no limit on the number of titles that can be in use, no return period unless it's our physical copy. And they can just delete everything on the flash drive and reload it or keep them. And then if someone is lucky enough to have access to a tablet, smartphone, Kindle Fire, mobile device, we have a free app called BARD Mobile, and they can have instant access to all of our talking books anytime they want that way. And of course, BARD Mobile is completely accessible. It works with VoiceOver or Android TalkBack. We have our wonderful tech coaches like Chancey to teach people how to use it and help them gain confidence in using these things. And they can use that to access all of our books, plus all of our 60 magazine subscriptions and audio that are available to them as well. We have cultural programming like book discussion groups, poetry reading, open book discussion hour. We have writing workshops with transcribers. So if someone wants to speak out loud their memoir, they can do that. We have, during normal times when, things are back to normal. We have audio described film nights, everything we can do to try to create community around culture and writing. And that's what we are there for as a library. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'd love to talk to you or any of your groups more, and tell everyone how much we would love to give them books to listen to.
That's just awesome. And that's a nationwide resource or just in New York? Nationwide.
Nationwide.
Is it possible you can put that website that you were speaking about in the chat just so people who would be able to access it can?
So I'm going to put it in there again. It's nypl.org/talkingbooks. That is our homepage. And from that homepage, you can get to our catalog. You can get to videos on how to use the Talking Books machine, how to use Bard, the website, Bard Mobile, the app. It has our application, so anyone can sign up. Any of you guys can certify someone to sign up for it. And it also has our upcoming events listed. I'll put my own email in the chat as well.
Awesome. So I'm going to save the chat so it's going to be available for everybody. But thank you so much to all of our panelists, to Mr. Mercado, to Dr. Marinoff, to Carol Moog, to Chancey Fleet, to Jill Rothstein. Thank you so much for providing all this information so that we can help our patients in many different ways. And if I think there's one central theme that came out is you really want to connect people to communities. And so I think that that's something we can really take away from tonight in trying to help our patients out. We had one question that I didn't get to, and it was for our mobility specialists. The question was whether mobility services are paid by insurance, provided by the state, or paid out of pocket. So anybody who knows the answer to that, feel free to unmute yourself.
The mobility services are provided free of charge. If somebody is certified as legally blind, then they would be referred through the state commission to the agency, so that it doesn't matter income level, insurance, that's not even on our radar. And we'll serve anybody from, well, I only work with adults, but there are instructors that work with kids, but all the way up through 100 years old. It's our thing of working across the board. And then right now we have a grant at Lighthouse Guild where we are working with clients that are not legally blind, but may have some vision problems, so they can receive mobility training also.
Awesome. And a lot of the resources that were mentioned are also here in the chat, which I'll save, and I recommend that you save it too, so you can use those resources. So with that, I can't believe it, because I'm never on time, but we are actually on time and out of time. But I really want to thank everybody for helping us out today and really just giving us some resources beyond the exam room in order to help our patients who have low vision. So with that, if anyone has any other questions, you can reach out to me directly. Otherwise, have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
Great, thank you.